Hi, welcome to Nerds Main Mini Episode. Scott, go ahead.
We're eating tacos.
We're eating tacos, and I would like to put forth a rebuttal to Jesse's vapid, horrid take on Pacific Rim, because apparently, I thought the movie was good. It got into it. The first 5 minutes were really, really good because it laid out like, well, here's what the movie's going to be, and we were good.
As a reminder, this is a PG-13 podcast before you go too much farther.
Oh, okay. Now, I can basically rebut and trash absolutely everything you had to say in the entire rebuttal with this. Okay. Please give me a précis of Pacific Rim. And if you're unsure of the term précis, I can gladly expound upon what I'm looking for.
I don't know what that means.
For our listeners at home, a précis is a 1 to 3 sentence explanation that encompasses the entirety of the story. So can you break Pacific Rim down to between 1 and 3 sentences for me? Explain what is the movie without just give me the actual story, not the, well, it was something that sucked that I didn't like. Give me what the story is supposed to encompass.
Aliens invade the planet, giant robots fighting back, wall fails.
To which I will rebut all of what you've said about it and will respond with, yes, you're right. Shakespeare's version was much better. If you go into the movie there was no plot, there was no plot development, and there was no character. I wanted character development. The one character that I liked wasn't on screen long enough. Yes, I would have liked to have been in Mr. Chow's backstory a little bit more, but one of my favorite lines was, "Where's my shoe?"
Yes.
Which you have to stick around for through the credits enough. But if you set your expectations way up here, when you said robots battle Godzilla monsters,
I know.
Really?
I agree with that.
Really?
And as I said, I didn't like the movie, but the movie would have been better as a 3-part movie. There was too much story and not enough time to tell it. They rushed through too much.
Too much story.
Yeah,
They
thank
rushed
you.
through it. There could have been more. They had this beautiful scene of the little girl's memory.
Yeah.
And they didn't really, they just kind of stopped it and poof, we're back to fighting monsters again.
Yeah, and then they picked it up.
Well, because she experienced trauma. That's all. What else is there? Is like her crying over her dead parents, and then grubbing around for food until the UN helicopters come for the next week. What more would you tell about that? Her city was destroyed.
It was a touching moment in a movie that had no other touching moment.
The only guy to solo drive a Jaeger gets out, has the shining sun behind her, saves little girl. Seriously, what did you want to know? Well, then she had truffles and anchovy pasta for dinner.
And see,
what did you want to know about that story?
The way I interpreted that scene was the monster literally came through and destroyed her block, and then she started screaming for her parents. That's where it picks up. It was the monster left 5 seconds ago, and the scene started. Yeah. That's why she couldn't find them, because they were crushed under a building somewhere. She was the only one to survive an attack 5 seconds ago, and then the Jaeger shows up and fights the monster off camera.
Right.
And the scene plays out.
But I'm very much with George in the idea of, what do you mean that you said, okay, aliens show up, robots fight monster. How much more how much deeper did you want to get 3 movies out of that?
I just felt that they fast forwarded too much. I would have liked to have seen the start. When they skipped the 5 years after his brother gets killed.
So you want more world building?
Yes.
Right, okay.
I can go with that.
If there had been a comic line that explained it a little bit better, it didn't have to be done in the movie. But it's one movie, poof, it's gone, it's over. That's all there is. They had toys in the movie.
But I do appreciate they ended it with actual.
Why isn't there a toy line for this?
Oh, you are horrible.
You've got a good point.
Excuse me, they're
There
writing
is a
the sequel.
I thought there was a toy line too.
That might help. In all fairness, I've watched it again since the first time I watched it.
But here's my thing, is that with Guillermo del Toro, he's a great visual filmmaker.
Oh, it was beautiful.
It's fantastic. My problem with Pacific Rim, because I don't think it was a perfect movie, I did enjoy it. I thought the characterization was lacking, but I think that Guillermo del Toro is somewhat overrated as a filmmaker, not because he doesn't make very good movies, but I think a lot of his movies, even Pan's Labyrinth, which is really good, and Hellboy and stuff, the characterization is always, I think, some of the weakest parts of his movie. And I thought that was a weak part of this movie, but I expected it because that's my opinion of del Toro.
Well, and Guillermo del Toro, and I agree with you completely, it's the character depth that never reaches the full expression, or the character depth doesn't match the visual depth of the movie.
Yeah, and it's partly because he tells so many pulpy stories, and that's always the weakness of the pulp genre itself, is it usually relies on these broad stroke characterizations.
Yeah.
You know?
But I wasn't at all. I mean, and I went, okay, there's some of the characters, they didn't, like, what happened to the guy during the 5 years while he was on the wall, and, all right, they didn't build any of that in. And then you're like, well, and I hope this movie makes up for it with the visual stunning element of the robot fights. And then I went, oh my god, that's amazing.
The reason why they build the wall is because it's a huge metaphor for climate change and for Katrina and things like that.
They could have done it a little better. I mean, the wall, they made it like the size of the monsters. They really didn't think they'd just go over it.
Yeah, but that metaphor kind of matches the argument. I wish they'd really done it better. Okay?
That's the thing is that they leave the poor people by the wall while the rich people move inland, and that's supposed to, like, replicate, in Katrina, where the poor people were stuck in the city and couldn't get out.
Right.
And all the rich people
in the wall. Yeah, exactly.
That's why that happened.
So, but
so
the
what
answer
about the use of the sword.
But that was
that's
bad.
a big problem. In
Okay, that was. By the way, we didn't tell you.
The sword.
By the way, we didn't tell you there's a sword. Shing. No. We didn't tell you there's a sword. Shing.
Yarp. In F-15 and being like, oh, there's also missiles.
Yeah.
Like when they're in the air. Like after the 5th time they pilot.
It's the so when we were in the shop, some guys were watching this old anime, and we thought this would be a great idea.
Yeah. Well, and
it is also a total anime moment where it's like a Gundam or something, where it's like you're 10 episodes in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's this new shiny weapon because we need it because we're 10 episodes in and you're bored now.
Because ratings.
Thank you. Well, and that's like when you're in the F-15 and you've been up and you've downed your first 5 with machine guns only. And then it's a dogfight with 3 guys and it's really getting hairy and you're like, oh, how can I position them? There's 3 of them to where I can use the machine gun. And somebody goes, oh, by the way, you got missiles.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, really?
We never told you that in training because it's not that important.
Right! And then they're like, look, shing! And the sword was really cool, but it was like, we have a sword, roar!
But then again, it goes to anime, where in anime it's like all of the pilots of the various robots are not actually trained. They're just 15-year-old boys that somehow found their way inside.
Right, and they're all different mechs. There's no standard, like, well, every mech comes with arms. This one's got 3. Like, wait, what? And then he pulls out the sword and he goes, roar! And it was like, okay, that was bad. Somebody should have mentioned the sword. And then the sword breaks. And it's this moment when you're like, okay, the hidden thing that they hadn't told us about, like, he just lost his one advantage. What is he going to do now? And she goes, we got another one! And I was like, what? Okay, not only did you not tell him they had 1 sword, but you didn't tell him he had 2. Like, from the beginning, you should have gone, shing, paired blades, throwback to Escaflowne, never mind. It was bad. That was bad, and I can't repute that, but if you were looking for the idea of, if you wanted something Shakespearean or with a far degree of character depth and development, like you just said, aliens show up, giants fight, robots fight Godzilla. Really?
There was more character development in Mothra.
But I will say,
little
singing,
but the little singing girl.
It's a sign he did build a very good world, in that you wanted to spend more time there, and part of your problem is you didn't get to spend enough time with it. And so it's like, the Russians were so painfully cool, and we saw so little of them. I would have loved to see a whole movie about those guys. I'm going to agree with you, but that's not a problem with Pacific Rim. It's just, he built these cool...
It's more a problem with Hollywood.
It's a problem with the
but it's so cool. It's like, these characters are so neat that you want to see this movie with them. That's a good thing. And they could tell a side story about the Russians.
As I said, I am a fan of Del Toro. This is a bad Del Toro movie. This would have been a great Michael Bay movie. I mean, it would have been one of his best.
Explosions!
So you just said...
There was only a $100 million budget. He would have needed double that.
Yeah. But again, that's a factor of you setting the bar too high.
I did.
Not the movie being deficient in any way except for, oh, by the way, we have a sword.
Yeah.
That we didn't tell you about.
And for the record, we warned you going in. Del Toro is going to have fun with this. He's not telling a serious story. Didn't we tell you that?
Doesn't matter.
Didn't we tell you that?
Because I was with you, though. I wanted to know about 50 times more about Hannibal Chow than I ever learned.
Yeah.
I was so in on that character.
He was far more interesting than the main character.
But that's also, you put Ron Perlman in a role in any movie, he's going to be more interesting than pretty much any other character in the movie.
If he commits to the role.
Yeah. And he did. And it was great. Where's my goddamn shoe? That was one of the best lines of the movie.
Well, and that'll do us for this small little episode. Check us out on iTunes, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll talk to you later.